Time. What is it, and how old is the earth? One of the things that Christians can never be accused of is consistency. And I say this because this chapter opens up, believe it or not, one of the most important subjects that needs to be addressed in the creation-evolution controversy is the subject of time. Hyphen. No more slash between creation and evolution. It's a hyphen now. Consistency, irrelevant to someone who believes in magic, I guess. How old is the earth? That's the second time that I've seen that he asks this exact same question while talking about this chapter. And I do say he's talking about this chapter because, as you will have noticed, he's not talking of the topic. He's just introducing the chapter again, and I imagine this is going to go on. Oh fuck. I was going to say I imagine it goes on for many other pages, and my eyes just dropped to the bottom of this same page. Page 76, near the top, how old is the earth? 76 at the bottom of the screen, how old is the earth? Repetition, repeated often, repeats itself repeatedly, I guess. That doesn't mean anything, but neither does this, so who the fuck cares? Is the earth and universe 6 or 7 years old? Sorry, 6 or 7,000 years old. I was close. Closer than they are to the actual age. 6 or 7,000 years old, as the Bible seems to indicate? Or is it billions of years old, as the evolutionists claim? Neither. It is billions of years old. The Earth is 4.7 billion years old. The universe is about 14 billion years old. They're not the same age, is the key point to take away from that. But evolutionists don't claim that, because evolutionists do not care about the age of the Earth or the universe. They care about biology, because they're biologists. You know, smart, talky word people, call them biologists. Dumb, not understandy wordy people, like Kent Hovind, say evolutionists, because evolution is a crime. Something. Whatever, who cares? If the Earth is not old, if it is only 6 or 7,000 years old, as I contend that it is, that ends the argument for evolution. Well, no, it doesn't. Because evolution in the current model works on, a very long period of time. But we still see the signs of evolution. We see the signs of evolution, and we see them over long periods of time. But we still see evolution over short periods of time. So even if the Earth was only 6 or 7,000 years old, or 10, because being off by 50 to, 6 or 10, that's like double. Your range is from 1 to twice as much. It's not exactly precise. Evolution can happen in a short frame, and does, and happens in fact every generation. If the Earth is only 6 or 7,000 years old, evolution still happens. So, wrong 3 times. 3 in one statement. Well done, Kent. I think that's a record. I often see people being wrong twice, but very rarely do I see them being wrong 3 times in one statement. Whatever. There can be no evolution in such a short time frame. Observed instances of evolution. Fuck you. Yes, there can. There can be there can be speciation in a decade. Observed instances of evolution again. Yeah, in a decade there can be evolution. So 1,000 years, 6,000 years. That's a hell of a lot more time than you need for a new species to appear. Evolution happens. Period. Time is absolutely essential to the evolutionists. Yes. And like I said, evolution happens every generation, and the only amount of time you need to prove evolution is 1 generation. If you have 1 generation worth of time, if you have any time at all, then guess what? You have enough time for evolution. Evolution requires time. We have massive amounts of time, but it requires time. Period. Not a time period, but just it requires time. End of statement. And we have time, end of statement. So evolution can happen. It doesn't prove anything wrong. So Kent Hovind, you're a douchebag. If a person starts trying to prove the fact that the Earth is only 6,000 or 7,000 years old, the evolutionists get extremely defensive. Was I being defensive there? I was pointing out that even if it is, evolution still happens. I'm not an evolutionist. I mean, granted, I don't have a degree in biology, and I don't feel that it would be correct for me to send in 47 box tops and $100 to someone's house in the suburbs called a university to get a fake diploma. Although I think I have a diploma somewhere for something I did while I was in the Cub Scouts. So, you know, maybe I could just present that as my PhD, and it would still be more valid than Kent Hovind's crap. But was I being defensive over the 6,000 or 7,000 years of time? Because it's false that the universe is only 6,000 years old. That is just false. And there's reasons why, geological reasons, not evolutionist reasons. But even if it were, even if the universe was created last Thursday, so what? Evolution still happens. It happens now. It is happening right now every time something is born, every time something reproduces, every time bacteria separate into two new bacteria, single-celled organisms, whatever. Every time it happens, evolution is being proven. So, I need a day to prove evolution. And I'm not even a biologist. What could a biologist do in a day? Accomplish more than Kent Hovind ever has in his life. For one thing, they wouldn't end up in jail. Unless they really tried, but, you know, that's them. They will bring up many different questions such as, what about carbon dating? No. Did I bring up carbon dating once? Because carbon dating is not how people date the Earth. Carbon dating, because of the half-life of carbon-14, can be calibrated to range about, at most, 45,000, 60,000 years. That is the absolute most, and after that, the accuracy drops up severely. After 45,000, it drops up sharply, and it's, 60,000 is a really outlier date for. If the Earth is, I remind you, 4 billion years old, 4.7 billion years old, 45,000 is a little bit short. I know creationists are horrible at math, but billion, 4.5, let's call it 4.5 instead of 4.7, it'll be easier. 4.5 billion is a lot more than 45,000. There's a lot more zeros in between. You know what those zeros mean? It means you have absolutely no accuracy with carbon dating. There are other radiometric methods to date the Earth than carbon, which is not used to date rocks, because rocks don't have fucking carbon in them, except for, rocks made out of carbon. Life forms accumulate carbon-14 because they eat food, and it's an isotope produced by the sun, etc., blah blah blah, and it decays. Rocks don't eat plants. I know this is a shock to Kent Hovind. Rocks don't eat plants. I'm sorry if I just ruined your night, Kent Hovind, in jail. Rocks do not eat plants, and therefore they do not accumulate carbon-14, and therefore cannot be dated based on the decay rate of carbon-14, because they don't eat plants. What about the dinosaurs? Yes, what about the dinosaurs, which existed millions of years ago, and are known to have existed millions of years ago because of carbon dating? No, because of other methods. What about cavemen? No one calls cavemen cavemen. There is no such thing as caveman. The guy with the club that bonks the big fat bearded hairy woman wearing an animal skin that has only one strap somehow and holds up. That is a cartoon. You saw that in the Flintstones, Kent Hovind. That is not science. That is a cartoon. What about cavemen? Indeed. Same thing I'm asking. What about the geologic features of the Earth, etc.? Pretty much that one right there is, yeah. I will try to answer these questions as well as many others later in this book. Well, you're running out of time, and it's the fucking chapter talking about time, and these are objections about how much more time there is, so why don't you fucking address them here? Oh, right, because he's not going to. First, we will look at the subject of time. I promise you that diatribe after, I'll answer them later. I didn't read the next line, and it's like, this is a topic of time. I'm going to talk about time later. How appropriate. Lack of billions of years is the Achilles heel to evolution. As I pointed out already, no, it's not. If there isn't a lot of time, the argument is absolutely over. You've already stated this. You haven't proven it. Time is essential to the evolutionist for the 5th time. Their entire argument is built upon the premise that there's plenty of time. If there isn't a lot of time, it's time. How old is the Earth? I told you it came back. First of all, let's discuss what is time anyway. Time is a measurement that we use as humans here on Earth to measure the rate at which things decay. No. That is not the definition that I would use of time. Time is just a measure of the passage of events. I mean, the rate at which things decay. Yes, because, of course, scientists, who are also all atheists, remember, scientists measure time by reminding themselves we are moving ever closer to the decay and death and eternal void that is the end. I'm not a really good actor. Holy crap, Kent. What the fuck? Were you depressed when you wrote this? The fuck? Wow. Time is a human element that does not affect God. Well, according to Kent Hovind's theology itself, I repeat that in different words, according to the Bible, time does affect God. On the 7th day he rested. If time is meaningless, why would he get tired? It's difficult for us to understand how there can be no time in heaven. Look, for those of you who are still old enough to remember VCRs, but I guess it works with videos on the internet, you can actually make that experiment with this video that you're watching right now. Hit the pause button somewhere in the middle of this sentence. After you press play again, you will notice that I didn't stop and go like, what the hell just happened? The whole universe stopped moving. That's because the passage of time is how you experience events. If time, as we experience as humans, were to pause suddenly, our knowledge of the passage of time would also be paused because all of our knowledge would be frozen in time with it. And when it started up again, we would not notice any difference because, exactly like this video, it would start up again. And the person inside the time would be completely unaware. So, time, how there's no time in heaven? Great, then everyone in heaven is frozen in the middle of whatever the last action they were doing was. They're just... not moving, not experiencing, not feeling, not sucking God's cock. Because remember, in heaven, you have the privilege of sucking God's cock for all of eternity. How can there be another dimension? We tend to think that this is April 28, 1990, or whatever date it is. I wonder when he wrote this. In heaven. This is the most common mistake people make when thinking about God. God is not limited by time. There is no time at all in heaven. God is the same yesterday, today, and forever because He is in a different dimension than we are. Then. T-H-E-N, not A-N. Good choice, Miss Kim Van Gundy. You pathetic failure of a writer. Typist, I should say. Right, God is in a different dimension. And your basis for this is... I know it's not the Bible, because the word dimension doesn't really make sense to anyone from the time the Bible was written. I don't think it existed as a word, as a concept back then. So, where in the Bible does it say God is in a different dimension? Because it says He's in the sky, in the heavens. The same word, heavens, is used to describe the sky and where God is. So God, according to the Bible that Kent Hovind, I remind you, says you should believe word for word as it's printed, where's this dimension in the sky that has no time? One of my very early videos with the mask on was about, not making a statement and then contradicting yourself, being consistent, being coherent at least, because it's really annoying to see you argue so hard to make a point and then contradict yourself without even fucking realizing it. In the same conversation I had on YouTube where I had to, I forget why I mentioned it earlier, explaining, the consistency thing came up, and this person contradicted themselves. And their first excuse, they were committing special pleading. It was about how God is the source of morality. Morality needs a greater being. God has morality because it's intrinsic. Well, you're contradicting yourself. And this person's response was, well, as for special pleading, well, God's an exception. So the solution to the special pleading was even more special pleading, which, not really convincing to someone who knows why special pleading is bullshit. Doubling down on bullshit is going to lose you money in Reno. I didn't go with Vegas. I Fallout, I guess. The second one, New Reno. Dimension of God, right. Where in the Bible is that? It's not in there, I can assure you. Right away, someone will say, no, that just doesn't make sense. I didn't say that. I said that it's not even biblical, but sure, it does not make sense. Everything is affected by time. As far as we know. As far as we can observe. And we have no reason to think otherwise. Because if we did, well, we could throw everything out the window. We would not understand anything. Be careful with statements like that, Kent Hovind says, after making several thousand such statements in this piece of crap. You are trying to put human limitations on God. No, we're pointing out that it's incoherent. Just saying. God does not have any human limitations, except, of course, that he can't find Adam in the Garden of Eden. He has to test someone to find out if their faith is strong by telling them to kill their kid. He makes bargains. He wrestles with someone in the Bible for a few days in a row, non-stop, and, can't immediately win despite the fact that he's God, because, he grows tired on the 7th fucking day. No human limitations, except a whole bunch of them that Kent Hovind conveniently ignores, even though he should say anything that's in the Bible is the truth. Remember? Consistency. not something you can accuse Christians of being. Heaven and eternity, we are the only ones locked in time and space, not God. Thanks for asserting it, even with no proof. We are locked, heaven and eternity are not things we can comprehend while we are locked in flesh. Says the guy who makes his living explaining these things to idiots. At least I can agree with that statement. Heaven and eternity are not things we can comprehend. Because that means theology, theo, God, logos, to make a study of. To make a study of God is to study the unknowable. I agree, theology is worthless as a field of study because it studies the unstudyable. Well done, theologians, you've wasted your life. And many others, I might add. An example of this would be the story where Paul was stoned to death outside of the city of Lystra. Paul went to heaven where he got a foretaste of eternity. He saw heaven! Exclamation mark, exclamation mark, exclamation mark, and all three words underlined. Paul saw heaven. I guess that's the end of that. Evolution must be false. God said, I'm sorry, Paul, you must go back down to Earth. Your planet needs you. That's not what he says, but it may as well be. My version's better. Blah, blah, blah. He said 14 years later, I knew a man in Christ above 14 years ago, whether in the body, whether out of the body, I cannot tell. God knoweth. Oh, okay, that clears that up. What time is it in heaven? It's go fuck yourself. Stupid question, man. Let's imagine that you are in a helicopter above the Grand Canyon. That is what time it is in heaven. Imagine you're in a helicopter above the Grand Canyon. As you hover up there, we'll imagine yet that you have the capacity to hover for days and days at a time. You notice through your telescope that some people are launching a raft at the beginning. No, sorry, I misread. You notice through your telescope that some people are launching a raft at beginning of the canyon. About 30 minutes later, another group of people launch a raft. 30 minutes later, a third group of people launch a raft. Even every 30 minutes, a new group. You couldn't say this earlier. Every 30 minutes, you couldn't just open up with that instead of another one and another one and the third. Fucking write like an adult, at least, for fuck's sake. I mean, get the woman who typed this for you, because all those buttons were probably confusing to your godliness. Get the woman who typed this up for you to write like a fucking adult. Although she probably wasn't intelligent enough to create the words. You probably just spewed them at her and hope for the best. None of the groups can see each other because of the twists and bends of the river as it goes through the canyon. They cannot see the group in front of them or behind them. Okay, I see where he's getting at here. You, hovering above, can see all of them at all times, in all places, except you're also stuck in time, so this whole analogy falls fucking flat. Because if you were outside of time, you wouldn't be able to see them because light would not be moving, and because, you know, you have to have light in order to see, you wouldn't be able to see anything. I guess understanding science is not very important for a science teacher. And he's still going at it. We are locked into 1991 right now. We will be here for a year, then we will be locked into 1992. We cannot speed it up or slow it down regardless of what we do. False! False, douchebag! Oh man, the GPS satellites have to have their timing adjusted on a regular basis, because the fact that they are in space farther away from gravity and are traveling very quickly slows time down for them. The faster you go near and nearer the speed of light, the more time slows down, the more it dilates. So time can be sped up or slowed down. Well, maybe not sped up, but it certainly can be slowed down. So, regardless of what we do, satellites, motherfucker, eat it. Science teacher for how many years, he said? I mean, it's bullshit, obviously, but 1976 to 1990, he was running this in 1990. That's 24 years? No. Is it? Whatever. Who the fuck cares? 12 years, I think. I don't even know anymore. The numbers are just gone because it's too amusing. This guy is a science teacher and he doesn't understand relativity. What was he teaching? First grade science? Here's water. It is drinkable. Here is food. You eat it. What the fuck? This is absolutely beyond our comprehension. Kent Hovind, the number of things that are beyond your comprehension is far greater than you believe. And at the bottom of page 80, there's a graph with, well, very poorly drawn blocks of something, and a wave slowing down. And for instance, look at the illustration of the electromagnetic spectrum. It's in black and white. So, and from the lines on the page, this looks like it's pasted onto the manuscript of the book, but whatever. Skipping this. As I was thinking on this subject, this is going to be hilarious, I wrote a poem to try to explain this, comparing blind men and atheists. In his doctoral dissertation, he wrote a poem. And I need to blow my nose. Get yourselves ready. Take this time. Go get some popcorn or something. This is going to be great. Oh man. Two blind men argued well into the night about the great question, is there really sight? Said one to the other, and quite fervently, there cannot be colors, or else we could see. So take red and green and blue off the list. If I cannot see them, they must know exist. A crazy man told me the sky is bright blue. I listened intently, but I caught no clue of anything out there to alter my mind. I'm not deaf, you know. I hear, H-E-R-E, perfectly fine. Be quiet and listen, and then you will know that colors aren't real. How dare they say so? They tell me that grass is some sort of green. It looks like the rest of the world that I've seen. It tastes a lot different than jelly or cheese. If I smell it too long, it sure makes me sneeze. It's an adult who wrote this. It feels a lot different that ice cream or snow. A lot different that. I've counted 3 errors so far. But to say that it's green, I'd have to say no. I will not believe it until I have seen. There isn't a difference twixt red, blue, or green, exclamation mark, exclamation mark. And so the men argued with all of their might, and I couldn't show them that they were not right. They cannot see colors because they were blind. No apostrophe, no A, just they blind. But I couldn't get the truth in their mind. Until they are given the great gift of sight, never, not ever will they see the light. 2 atheists argued on university sod, because of course the Christians hate universities, which are places of higher learning, and as you know, the only higher learning that should be done is sucking God's cock. That is the only learning that is acceptable to Christians. About the great question, is there a God? Said one to the other, and quite fervently, there can't be a God, or else we could see. So take that old Bible and God off the list. If I cannot see him, he must not exist. Be quiet and listen, and then you will know, yes, quite, not quiet, that God is not real. How dare they say so? A crazy man told me God lives up in heaven. If you knew how many crazy people told me God lives up in heaven, if I had a nickel, I'd be rich. I used to believe that when I was just 7, but now that I'm older and wiser, you see, I will not believe it. You can't prove it to me. Well, we keep asking you to prove it, and you don't. You write poems instead. So that is the reason we wish you were dead. I cannot sense God with sight, taste, or smell. I do not believe in heaven or hell. I've never heard God or felt him at all. If he's really up there, I wish he would call. I said, listen, fellows, you're spiritually blind. You've only 5 entrances into your mind. That limits your input. I wish you could see. You can't fathom God or eternity. There are lots of things that really are real. It doesn't disprove God because you can't feel. So you too can argue the rest of the night. There's no way to show you that you are not right. When you get to heaven, or hell if you please, you'll understand God as you fall on your knees. I wish you could see him or hear him some now, but that isn't possible where you are now. To deny his existence is really absurd. You have to believe him and trust in his word. So, going over this pile of crap, blind men are arguing against the existence of color. And fair enough, if you're born blind, there's no way of knowing what color something is. It's a concept that escapes you entirely. You might understand it in some way as the texture of what you're feeling. Oh, this is a certain texture. It's actually kind of soft, but if you scratch it, it makes a noise. My desk is kind of soft too. It makes a different noise when I scratch it. It has a different texture. Maybe that's how you could understand color if you're blind. But there's a very simple experiment you can perform to find out if color is real. You get a person to bring you 3 objects, and you hide yourself behind, you hide something under your shirt, for instance. Shirts are not transparent. Or, you satisfactorily accept that there's a covering between you and sighted people that they cannot see through. You hold up one of the objects. You say, you ask the first person, what color is this object? Oh, this one is green. Okay, this one here is green. This one's yellow. This one's red. Great. You have 3 objects, 3 different colors, you're told. You keep track of where the pieces are. You might even want to put your arm on them so no one can sneak in and move them around because you're blind. Someone quiet could trick you. You hold these objects, and you ask someone to come in. And as they come in, you hold one of the objects over the panel. You say, what color is this? Yellow. Well, that's the one that the first person told me was yellow. Okay. What color is this? Oh, that's red. Okay, great. What color is this? Green. Right. Next person leaves the room. Next person comes in. You say, is this yellow? Oh no, this one's the green one. You know it's the green one because you had your hand on it the whole time, and that's the one that the 2 other people said was green. Is this one yellow? Now, if there's no such thing as color, the person entering the room will say one of 2 things, yes or no. If there's no color at all, they might expect a trick question. They might say yes, they might say no. So you try again. You take the yellow one, you say, is this green? And then you put it down, and you hold it up again, and you say, is this red? And then you put it down, and you hold it up again, and you say, is this green? You just keep trying to trick them. And if someone can see, and the objects do actually have a color, everyone will agree. You might get someone who has, color blindness, and they might see the colors differently, but they have color blindness. There's your reason why they don't see the colors the same. But you can produce an experiment that allows you to ascertain that there is an unseen, invisible thing to you that actually exists in the real world. Blind people can be convinced of the existence of colors with a very simple experiment. Even though they can't see them, even though they might not even know what green means, by giving them objects of different colors, you can prove to them the existence of colors by having them move the things around, knowing which one is which, and holding them up. Simple as that. You might even put it on Braille. This one is red, okay? They feel it, it's red, they hold it up. Everyone is going to say red because they can see red. Simple as that. You can prove the existence of colors to blind people that simply. Prove God. Go ahead. We are blind. Hold up your colored block to prove that God exists. But Kent Hovind already covered that, you see. But that isn't possible where you are now. You can't prove that God exists according to Kent Hovind. If you cannot prove the existence of colors, even to blind people, if you have no way of proving what you're saying is true, then you may as well be wrong. And the case is, in this one at least, Kent Hovind believes in something unprovable and wrong. Simple as that. Maybe we are spiritually blind, whatever the fuck that is supposed to mean. But there is a very simple experiment that you could perform to prove the existence of your God. Right? Your God is all-powerful after all, and He's all-knowing. Surely your God would be capable of producing an experiment like that to prove His existence. But it's not possible where you are now. Okay, great. It's not possible to prove that God exists because God doesn't exist. I hope I didn't say it's not possible to prove God doesn't exist. It's not possible to prove God does exist. It's trivial to prove that the God of Christianity does not exist. All you have to do is look at how He's described. For instance, very simple thing, and we're completely off the subject of time in this chapter on time, but whatever. I have in my hand a pocket knife. It is a blue pocket knife. Okay? There exists in my hand right now a blue pocket knife. Do you accept that? Say yes, because otherwise it'll kind of spoil the experiment. Aha! Here is my blue pocket knife. You might be asking yourself, wait a sec. That's not blue, is it? In fact, no, this is red. Christians do the same kind of parlor trick with their God. They say He's one thing, and then when it's inconvenient to produce Him, or when you point out that God is supposed to be moral but He murders people in the Bible, oh well, you know, sure, but hey, at least the pocket knife exists. The distinction is, I said there was a blue pocket knife in my hand. Does this blue pocket knife exist? There's no blue pocket knife. This was a pocket knife in my hand. It's not blue. I do not have a blue pocket knife. I could possibly get one. The existence of a blue pocket knife is a possibility. Sure, absolutely. But it does not exist as I described it. So could you say that the existence of the blue pocket knife in my hand is disproven? Well, yes, in fact, it is. Christians will continue their parlor trick. But the pocket knife actually exists. It's a real thing. But it does not exist as described. And because it does not exist as described, the God as described in the Bible does not exist. That is the only way, the only experiment, the only proof you need to prove that the Christian God does not exist. It's described in the Bible a certain way. That way is impossible. It's contradictory. He's described as being benevolent, and He constantly murders people. Benevolence and murder, and mass murder, and genocide don't really fit into the same category. So a benevolent, genocidal God is a contradiction in terms, and therefore cannot exist. It is a blue pocket knife like this one. I have officially disproven the existence of the Christian God. What I cannot disprove with this experiment is the existence of some God, the deistic idea. And fair's fair. I can't address that. It is so vague, it is so meaningless, that I cannot prove it is false. But it is so vague and meaningless that it's not provable as true either. And on that basis alone, can be safely rejected. Kent Hovind is trying to use that difference between the blue pocket knife and a pocket knife. He's trying to use that distinction between the deistic, undefined, vague God being unprovable to clad his easily disprovable God in an armor of bullshit. Christian God is trivial to disprove. I just did it. I could do it all day long. It is simple if you just read the fucking Bible and realize this contradicts that, therefore it's wrong. Simple as that. So this blind thing, I mean, if such a simple experiment is not possible for you to perform, even with the backing of an all-powerful God, you have nothing. You have absolutely nothing, and you should be ashamed of yourself for promoting this nothing as the bullshit it is. Now, back on the subject of time, for instance, Adam was 130 and a half years old when Seth was born. Are the dates rounded off to the nearest year? Was it on his birthday when his son was born? Did they use a year like we? Yes. The mistakes get worse and worse. I mean, the missing book title quote, that was bad, but this is worse. Did they use a Hebrew calendar 360 days? There are some slight possibilities for some minor changes, but nothing that accounts for billions of years. Yeah, the problem is, if the Hebrew calendar was 360 days, someone living to the age of 900 years wouldn't really make that much of a difference. That is 900 times 5 days missing, so that's 450 days. Yeah, 900 years in real time, according to this 360-day calendar, that would mean they actually live 899 years instead of 900. We know that people in the past lived a few decades, not a few centuries, not almost a millennia. We know that this is the case. In the time of Jesus, the approximate age, the life expectancy, approximately was 27 years, not 900. It's been getting better because of nutrition, sanitation, medical care, etc. Stuff that, you know, Moses would never have had access to, stuff that Methuselah wouldn't even have heard of, you know, healthcare, hygiene. The fuck is hygiene? But somehow they managed to live 900 some years old without proper food, proper medical care, proper anything, you know. Even the Egyptians were brushing their teeth. While they were building the pyramids, they had toothbrushes. Methuselah would never have used that, and therefore would have had no teeth by the time he was 205. But whatever, it's a bullshit story. But this time thing, yeah, nothing accounts for billions of years. Nothing accounts for people living to the age of 900. Even if you say, as my dad thinks, my dad learned this when he was younger. Instead of measuring years to calculate someone's age, they measured seasons. So 4 seasons a year, 900 years old, that's 120. Oops. No matter how you try to cut it, there's no rationalizing the extreme ages in the Bible of important characters that have nameless wives, and the fact that people didn't live very often more than 20 some years old at the time. Yeah. You can't really justify that. The problem of time is not so great for evolutionists who actually have a basis on which to say these things. It's a much greater problem for Christians who believe people live to 900 years. But whatever. Is there time in heaven? Who the fuck cares? What happened? Why did Christians abandon the teaching that the earth is only 6,000 years old? Because it's fucking wrong, is why. Just saying. Skipping ahead, Genesis 1:5, the evening and the morning were the first day. Okay, so he's trying to prove that the Genesis account is literal days because it says day. I won't argue. I fully endorse Christians, creationists, young earth creationists, believing that the days are literal days. Go ahead and believe it. It only makes you that much easier to make fun of because you're fucking idiots. I mean that. I'm not being sarcastic or mean here. Go ahead. Do believe that. It makes my job easier, and I'm in favor of anything that makes my job easier. Whew. So, probably the most serious contradiction to the gap theory proponents must overcome is a plain testimony of Jesus himself. In Matthew 19:4, Jesus plainly said that the creation of Adam and Eve was the beginning. Well, the problem with that is Adam and Eve showed up on day 6. So if the creation of Adam and Eve is the beginning, then the other 5 days are wrong, which means Genesis 1 is wrong, which means if the Genesis account is wrong, then the whole basis of the religion falls apart, which means Kent Hovind here has just dismantled Christianity. Kent Hovind did that, not me. I'm just pointing out that that's what he did. Kent Hovind here in page 86, one of the last paragraphs on the page, has proven Christianity to be wrong. I rest my case. The theistic evolutionists have said that the 6 days of creation were actually epochs, ages, or eons of years. 2 Peter 3:8, a day with the Lord is as 1,000 years, and 1,000 years as a day with the Lord. Because, of course, for someone who has no time, a period of time would be the same as some other period of time, but he doesn't have periods of time. So, doesn't this contradict Kent Hovind from earlier? Yes, it does, but who cares? It's Kent Hovind. He can contradict himself all day and never notice. Getting shower raped is too good for that dick. Oh man, the coin box. Okay, a little bit of a setup here. Eric Hovind has followed in his dad's footsteps, and he continues the conferences or presentations that his dad used to do, and uses the same kind of bullshit. In one of them, I think it's Logic, also, who has this in one of his series. I don't remember what the video is. I wish I did. But Eric Hovind is presenting the idea of how we age the Earth based on, you know, signs of how the Earth is. And he's using this exact example to explain how we can know that the age of the Earth is 6,000 to 7,000 years old. Let's suppose you were to go and find, I'm reading here, you were to go out and find a sunken ship with a box of coins on that ship. When you open the box of coins, you find dates on the coins from all different ages. If there is a coin in the box from 1850, right away you are limited to say that the ship sank after 1850. Now, this is obvious. A coin is printed, the date on it is the date that it's printed on. If it's on a ship, it can't have gotten there after the ship sank, so it has to be before. Eric Hovind, in an amazing display of the stupidity of his sheeple, asked his audience this exact question, and a very loud male voice from the back of the room shouted, "Before!" Yes, if there's a coin with a date on it, did the ship sink after or before that date? Before 1850. And in an amazing display of the accurate intelligence of his followers, one of them said before, and none of the others seem to have understood the concept of what is he talking about? Sunken ship? I mean, coins. There's dates on coins now. Oh, and it means something if it's on the. I don't understand. There's just mass confusion, and Eric Hovind is up there on stage credit where credit is due. He is doing an amazing job of trying to salvage that fucking train wreck. Credit to him. I mean, he's a sack of shit. He's a lying douchebag, and his boyfriend Seitan Bruggencate has made him even dumber than his dad ever did. But credit where credit is due. He did a hell of a job salvaging that fucking fiasco. But yeah, if you find a coin in the box from 1820, that doesn't mean that the ship sank around 1820, because you also have an 1850 coin in there. Correct. If you have multiple pieces of evidence, and one of them has a later date than a previous one, then you can date the maximum, the earliest, the most recent date as the biggest one, because it's sealed. You are limited to the youngest date in the box, exactly what I was saying. It may have sunk well after that. Right, you can have like a ship, if a ship went out tomorrow, a ship made of wood went out tomorrow with a collection of ancient coins dated from 1820 to 1850, then you could only say, if you found this ship a few thousand years from now, it sank sometimes after 1850. You could not say before, because the coin would not have been printed. Correct. It cannot sink before that. If there is an 1815 coin in the box and it is not a forgery, then the ship didn't sink in 1849. The same analogy is true when trying to determine the age of the Earth. The problem is that he's trying to say we should date the Earth with the most recent date, the youngest date. What is the problem with that? Type it in the comments if you feel like it. Pause this video, go ahead, I'll wait. And I'm back. Cheap trick, I know, but whatever. Gotta amuse myself. The reason for that is, if you're trying to find the birth date of something, you don't go with its date of death. If you want to find out when the ship was built, you don't look at the coin that was on it when it sank. You try to find the age of the actual ship. With the Earth, trying to find out that there's a coin from 1820 does not mean the Earth cannot be any younger than 1820. Actually, it does mean that, but it doesn't mean the age of the Earth is 1820. It means it's older. And it can, as with the ship being, sinking years later, if you go to the earliest age that you can find with the evidence that this simpleton, bothered to look up, if you go for the youngest age that Kent Hovind has for the age of the Earth, 6,000 years old, that is your limiter. But it can be anything before that. It can't be after that, but it can be anything before. So if we have records of 6,000 years ago, the Earth cannot be 2,000 years old. Great? You with me? 6,000 years ago we have Babylonian cuneiform, clay tablets with early writing in them. We do have an example from about 4,000 some years ago, so let's use that as our earliest date. The Earth cannot be younger than 4,000 some years ago. Great. Does that mean it's 4,000 some minus 1 years old? No, it can be billions of years older, because that does not change what happened before. Just like the ship could be bringing a collection of ancient coins decades or centuries after the fact and sink, and they would be lost. But it could be any time from 1850 to today, to 4,000 years from now, to 100,000 years from now. Those coins, if they survive that long, would be the date. We can't go any further back to decide it sank somewhere after that. Well, the Earth is the same thing in reverse. If you have evidence of 10,000 years old ago for Christianity, then it can be anything before 10,000, anything older than 10,000 years. So this argument that Kent Hovind is making to prop up his crippled point flies in his fucking face, and he's too stupid to realize it. But it's just worth it to point out his son is such a douchebag, and his audience is so stupid that they could not understand this, even when he was walking them through it. Hilarious. the influx of cosmic dirt to the Earth indicates that the Earth is less than 10,000 years old. Well, no, it's not, and it couldn't because it's older. So, whatever. You're looking at the 1820 coin, and there's an 1850 coin, basically. Reverse it, but whatever. The amount of nickel is not great enough for billion, blah, 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 blah. Comet Bank, blah, blah. El Paso, blah, 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 blah. Not 60 to 100 million light years, just 60 to 100 light years. You cannot measure distances accurately more than 60 to 100 light years away, says Kent Hovind. Okay, he's wrong, but whatever, you know. The other method that is used is called the redshift method. We will discuss this in more detail later. How old is the Earth? Yes, we're at page 92, where before I was at page 80-something, I think? 76, 80, whatever. Again, the same question for the 5th time, I believe, that I see it. Wow. Just, you know, how many pages into something do you have to be in order to actually get to the fucking point? Communism is a direct offshoot to evolution. Well, no, it's not. If a prince turns into a if a frog turns into a prince instantaneously, we call that a miracle or fairy tale. If a burning bush addresses you in a loud, audible voice, that's God. And that's science, because, you know, animals talk like snakes and donkeys. Projecting douchebag. I mean, if you're going to make this kind of pathetic argument, evolution is wrong because they say frogs can turn into princes. Don't believe that people are made out of fucking clay. I mean, it's a little bit hypocritical, and I personally hate hypocrisy. That's why I do everything I can in my life to eliminate hypocrisy. I have a very strong negative reaction to people being hypocrites, and this is one of those cases where you're being a fucking hypocrite. But whatever. Moving on, the pressure in oil wells in Texas is another indication that the Earth is young, because of course those oil wells appeared at the beginning of the universe 6,000 years ago. Oh wait. I lived 5 years in Texas, says Kent Hovind. I saw a flame shooting up in the sky one night and went over to investigate. There were some men burning off the natural gas as they were drilling an oil well. I began asking them questions, talked about the oil there in Longview, Texas. They told me that they have a blowout protector that they put about 1,000 feet down in the ground in case they drilled into a pocket of pressure. Wow. This has so much to do with time. Why is the oil... I skipped a page, a whole page, an entire page, and he's still going on about the oil pressure. Another evidence that the Earth... It's not... You can't use evidence that way. It's not a quantity. It's not a quantifiable word. Evidences. No, you have evidence where you have no evidence. There can be many points of evidence. There are many facts that you can use as evidence. But you don't have evidences. Here is evidence. Please sign for it as reception. Is a sediment in the ocean. A friend of mine out in California brought me a slab of what looked like a piece of polished marble about the size of a small tabletop. He said, "Mr. Hovind, I brought this to you because I thought you might be interested in it." I bet that no, you don't have a friend. No, he didn't bring you a piece that looked like polished marble, and he certainly didn't say this fucking thing like he was in Leave It to Beaver when they didn't know how to write a fucking script. Blah, blah, erosion of continents, because of course uplift never happens. What are mountains again? I don't know. I don't know why I brought those up. Uplift mountains. Two completely unrelated topics, I guess. There is as yet no tentable alternative. Tentable. I guess you can't put alternatives to evolution in a tent. God damn this guy. Explanation that would yield an evolutionary age of 4 billion years of the moon. Oh, the sentence is even worse than I thought. I actually do have a headache now. Ow. God damn, what the fuck. Here is as simple solution as science can provide. My head is going to explode. That the moon... Here's a simple solution as science can provide, that the moon is not as old as scientists claim. This is a very serious problem. Oh, so the very simple solution as science can provide is a very serious problem. What the fuck? Okay, we're on page 100. Now, I'll remind you, we've gone through, what, 4 chapters now? Dedication page, introduction, and the 4 chapters of whatever the fuck he felt like ranting about. And this is me saying it, that he was ranting. This entire thing is a rant. I freely recognize that these series are nothing but me ranting at stupidity, but this is a rant. Now he's on page 101, talking about Lord Kelvin, changing the spin rate of the Earth, whatever, blah blah blah. There are many Christians who try to pacify the evolutionists. They came up with several different alternatives. One was the day-age theory, which we've actually seen several pages ago. I briefly mentioned them. Briefly is the only mention I feel this crap needs. This said that the days mentioned in Genesis are really periods of time or evolutionary ages. Covered it already, like I said. This is where many of the modern translations of the Bible go bad, because they change slight little phrases in Genesis 1. Get out different translations and compare how they treat Genesis 1. The King James Version says it was the first day. It uses the definite article the, because as we all know, the King James Version of the Bible, and the Bible itself, which is to say the King James Version, was written in English and used the definite article the. Many other versions of the Bible use the article a. They will say that this was a first day and a second day. I don't know. I don't care. None of this matters. And even if it did, it would be really bad writing. I mean, the evening and the night of first day. It just doesn't have the same ring to it. That little subtle change is just an attempt to allow for the day-age theory. It's not a theory. It's a crap. It's crap. It is a crap. I'm trying to present my responses the same way this article is presenting stuff. So it is a crap. And crap is of course spelled with 3 R's. Ken Taylor's Living Bible. A garbage heap. Wow. What? Just okay. Ken Taylor's Living Bible, comma, IDON''THE garbage heap. I don't the garbage heap, period. Lowercase want to be too negative because there are many good things about it. In Genesis has an attempt to pacify the evolutionists by trying to include billions of years into the Bible framework. I read that as is. I don't even know what I just said. I read word for word. They do that by perverting the scripture. The scripture teaches that it was the first day, and it was 6 literal days, not 6 periods of time. God told Moses later in Exodus 2012, not year of Exodus 2012, although at this point I would not put that past Kent Hovind to believe that the world is going to end in 2012. I really wouldn't. I need a moment. I'm good. God told Moses later in Exodus 20:12, in the 10 Commandments, for in 6 days God created the heavens and the earth. Moses would have been a liar. Jesus obviously taught in a young earth and an instantaneous creation. He talked about Adam and Eve being created. God created them male and female. Was it Jesus who said that? At this point, I can't tell what is a badly cut paragraph from misattributed quotes. It's just so pathetic. So Jesus would be a liar also if evolution were true. Yes, and he is. If he existed, which is not certain, so who knows? In either case, evolution is true. That is the fact. Evolution is true, so if a Jesus existed and tried to pass himself off as a magic man, messiah man, person man, guy man, buddy man, friend man, don't call me buddy, man, then he would have been either lying or deluded or simply a legend. Not if he existed, of course, but certainly the story of Jesus could have been embellished over time because religion has evolved. There are some evidences that the earth is young. All this time pointing out that the earth is young, and there are some evidences that the earth is young. Page 102. Most cultures that are found in the world tell of a worldwide flood in the last 5,000 to 6,000 years. False. Many cultures have flood stories. They do not have global flood stories. And many of the places that would be brought up in order to have, some sort of, oh look, they have a flood story too. They would have been in contact with Christian missionaries for many years and have stories that are suspiciously similar, to not say identical. Or at least simplified versions. Like a guy took his wife, carved a tree into a boat, and sat in it while it rained. Oh, the sea flood story, that proves the earth is 6,000 years old. Even if most cultures are found in the world, even if every culture in the world had a global flood story, even if every single culture had a global flood story 5,000 to 6,000 years ago, remember? That doesn't mean the earth was created the day before. It could have been created any point in time before that. So again, this is the last page in this fucking piece of crap. I think we're all grateful for that. And right here, it's like, what the fuck? The population of the earth today doubles regularly. Except, no, it doesn't. You can actually Google age of the earth over time or something. I don't know the exact words. I might put a link in the description. But the population of the earth does not double regularly. The usual figure is 105 years. Because creationists like Kent Hovind took the age of the earth, the population on the earth right now, and they took the age of the earth that they want, in this case after the flood story, 8 people 4,000 years ago. So how often do you have to multiply that population at regular intervals for the original 8 people to become, say, the 8 billion that we have today, or however many we have today? Now you calculate the amount of time that you have to double to get the population today, and it turns out it's a certain number of time. You divide the number of times by the number of years in between, and you get 105. Oh, so they say, well, if we look at the world, the population doubles every 105 years. And if we match this number to our, oh look, it matches perfectly. Yes, because you did the math first to come up with that bullshit number. The population does not double regularly. The population of the earth has doubled, I think it has doubled, in just the 30-some years I've been alive. I'm not that old. If the population doubles within a single lifetime, what, do you think that for the next 60 years the population is going to stagnate completely? Are births just going to stop and deaths are going to stop, or they're going to match out exactly for the next 60 years? That population is going to be a straight line on the graph? Because of wars. because of diseases, because of low life expectancy, because of childbirth deaths, deaths occurring during birth, because about half of all babies before the invention of modern science died at birth. The population could not have doubled. Because people had a very low chance of even living to the age of 20 early on, the whole, have as many babies as possible, because you were expected to lose most of them. If you are expected to lose most of your children, and most of them die, you cannot seriously be saying that the population doubles regularly, with famine, with plagues, with just war, death, of all kind. The population has not doubled regularly. It only started increasing severely, what, 100 years ago? Maybe 150, maybe a little bit more. What really kicked it off is the scientific method, actually. The industrial revolution, for the most part, the scientific method in a big way has helped people stay alive. As we've improved our technologies, we've improved our life expectancy, and that means fewer of us die. The population hasn't doubled. It's not a straight line. It's been going almost flat, and now it's been rocketing upwards. If that's doubling every 150 years, 105 years, climbing rapidly after 4,000 years minus 105, if that is what you call doubling regularly, you don't know what words mean. If you were to draw up the population growth, well, I'm stopping it here. Oh, good. Okay. I told people not to call me, but whatever. I'm keeping it. The recording is already bad enough. Who the fuck cares? This is a pile of crap. It's not worth it. If you were to drop the population growth on a chart, you would see that it goes back to zero about 5,000 years ago. Yes, if you doubled it every 105 years, because that's what you need it to be to match your full fucking bullshit story, as I just got done saying. But you'll notice, just draw it on a map and you'll see it doubles every it goes back to zero about 5,000 years. What is regularly? What are the numbers here? He didn't even do the fucking math himself. He didn't even look up a chart of population growth. He didn't even bother finding out that depending on where you are in the world, the human population has grown and risen and fallen at different rates. It's not like, oh, the entire planet has this magical field around it that doubles the pop. The fuck, Kent Hovind? Draw up this fucking chart yourself so we can laugh at you properly. At least Eric has done the work to find out it's 105 years. And again, it's wrong, but that's another story. If man has been here millions of years like evolutionists teach, where is the population? Because no one ever dies. Everyone just stays alive forever. The whole population growth can be studied by anyone except creationists, because they don't. And it will be found that the population of the Earth dates a young age for the Earth of 4,000 to 5,000 years. Because, of course, if you have a coin for 1850 and a coin for 1820, the age of the ship is 1845. Why is it that all of recorded history happened to last 4,000 years? Because it hasn't. It's a little bit older than that. And also, writing was invented about how long ago? Babylonian cuneiform? Right, 4,000 years ago, give or take. That is when writing really started out, a few thousand years ago. Oh, so because writing was invented a few thousand years ago, that's the age of the Earth, the entire universe, in fact. These honest questions deserve an honest answer. I believe we have been lied to about the age of the Earth. Well, there are certainly people lying about the age of the Earth, Kent Hovind. I agree entirely with you there. Satan, the father of all lies, has come up with this one to try to make a fool of Jesus Christ. Well, I'll grant you, for the sake of argument, I'll spot you some points. And we're winding down to a close here. I'll spot you some points. Jesus existed. He was a real person. In fact, I'll go so far as to give you, despite the fact that I know that this is complete bullshit, I will give you Jesus was Christ. I'll give it to you. I'm giving you that gift. You can spot yourself 1,000 points. Jesus Christ existed. He was the Christ. He was the Messiah. He was the Son of God. He was actually God himself. You can spot yourself a million points. Satan, the father of all lies, would have not had to work very hard to make Jesus Christ look like a fucking fool. Just have to let him open his mouth. Jesus said in Matthew 19:4, that's the third time I see this quoted, that the creation of Adam and Eve was the beginning. Again, third time. I believe Jesus was right. Period. Page 101 at the bottom. It's actually 102 with an introduction page, and that's it. These are the 15 chapters, or however many in the introduction for it. And pieces of it are missing. They're cut out. They're skipping words. It's badly copy-pasted together. I don't know if the other 800 pages of this book, dissertation, manuscript, document, essay were lost to, you know, the evil mail system. Maybe that's what happened. Kent Hovind lost his manuscript. Shut up, phone. Shut up. Shut up! Kent Hovind lost his manuscript in the mail, and he decided never to pay taxes again. The end. So that was a really short series, and I, for one, am glad. I'd like to take this opportunity before the fucking phone rings again. Shut up, phone! I hate you. I hate you, phone. If you have a similar article to Atheism or Kent Hovind's doctoral dissertation, if you have a similar article from a creationist that you would like me to read through and provide my horrible form of entertainment to by critiquing it and ranting profusely at it with much profanity, because that's fun, please go ahead, write in the comments, send me a link, send me a private message on YouTube. I check those occasionally. Well, actually, fuck that. Fuck that. Just send me a comment, link, whatever. Tell me where to find this article, and I'll read through it really quickly. And if I like it, I would love to make more of these series, because for all that I do actually have a gigantic headache right now, this is kind of fun. I get to entertain and educate, and that is what everyone should strive for. So, on that note, before the fucking phone rings again, hate you, phone! See you, folks.